SysloSpice digital recipes for dominance. SysloSpice. Recipes for digital dominance. Hello everybody, we're gonna dive right in. All right, here's what's going on. So we got a little bit of SysloSpice coming at you. We're gonna do free weekly trainings on everything relating to marketing, digital media, video production, video editing, website design, graphic design, social media design, how to generate more leads, growing a digital brand, brand transformation, brand strategies. They're all gonna be free live trainings that you're gonna get an accessible link to. We're gonna do it every Wednesday at 7 p.m. My goal is to really educate you, give you some spice, throw some heat on it, build it all together so that you have everything you need for free to check out and improve your brand, your marketing efforts on social media right now, especially right now with everything that's required to bring your brand, your business, whatever it may be, into the digital era. So I hope to see you there. Sign up, let's get you on. I look forward to seeing you there. SysloSpice, recipes for digital dominance. I'll see you there. Hey everybody, how you doing? Coming in loud and clear. We're gonna start up tonight and get this thing going. So one of the things that is really important that we're gonna discuss tonight, it has to do with gaining power and authority in the marketplace, okay? And what do I mean by that? So with that, how do you position your brand? Oh, hold on one second. You should be able to hear me okay. Should be coming through. Looks like it's coming through fine. What we want to do in that scenario is really make sure that you are becoming a power position. Let me back up. Power and authority in the marketplace. That's what we're talking about today, okay? And how we do this and how we achieve this is through a myriad of different steps, which is what I'm going to go over right now. And hopefully this is coming through loud and clear. You should hear me okay. Right? So let's dive into that. Let's really break this out. Let's segment this out and so that you understand where we're coming from. So you can create a brand, you can create a business, you can create a presence. It's not something that is super difficult to do, nor is it really crazy or hard, right? So the goal of what it is that we're discussing here is the breakdown of how to attain power, how to attain authority, and how to become an expert in the marketplace so that people will want to communicate with you, so that people will want to buy from you and really build up a customer base and a loyal following. That's what we want to discuss right now, okay? So I've broken this out into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 different things that I have seen that have really made this become a power for you, something that you could use, something that you can create with and build from. And that's what I want to go over today. All right. So thank you for tuning in. If you're just tuning in, I really appreciate it. You can post in comments any questions that you might have or anything that you want to have covered. I'll answer it for you and we can discuss it. All right. So let's go into this. So power and authority. Okay. Power meaning you hold the power, you can influence things. You've got good decisions. You're helping people understand something specific. And then authority, which is the complete and utter control of a space. And where does that come from? Where that really comes from my viewpoint. It comes from a level of ethics. That's really number one. How much do you do the right thing? Say the right thing, back up what you're saying with the correct information, making it come to fruition, making it come to where it needs to be. Like, how are you positioning yourself in the marketplace with what you say, with your actions, and how you actually help people, okay? There's a lot of guys out there. I was watching this interesting documentary about a fitness company. And this particular company did really well financially. I think they're valued at like, I don't know, 700 million, something crazy. But they got a lot of attacks. They got a lot of attacks as they were going. And the reason why they got a lot of attacks is because a lot of other fitness experts in the space looked at this and said, hey, wait a minute, what this person is talking about doesn't make any sense. What this person is explaining, like, you would never do that. And these are professional bodybuilders. These are people that, you know, have done incredible things in their industry. That is what the game is, right? And so they're looking at this and they're saying, man, this is, so what happened? So all these YouTubers and all these other influencers went out and posted all this stuff, and the credibility of that company dropped. See, I'm a firm believer, like there are some people that'll sit there and say, hey, look, hate is a good thing. Hate's not a good thing. Hate isn't a good thing. You're responsible for creating that hate. You are responsible for creating that situation. If you're doing everything from a viewpoint of ethics, from a viewpoint of actually genuinely trying to help people, from a viewpoint of not creating problems for other people, then hate shouldn't really exist. Now, what can you do about somebody who perpetually just randomly doesn't like you? Okay, they don't like you. Great, that's fine. It happens. But you have to take responsibility for the hate that you create. Okay, right? So from the standpoint of power and authority, if you're doing it right, you shouldn't be receiving a lot of hate. You shouldn't. You should be receiving a lot of communication that's forward thinking, communication that's positioning you or positioning the organization in a way that propels it forward, something that's a little bit more healthy, more survivable, more beneficial to people, right? So your power and authority comes from your moral compass, okay? What are you doing every day? How do you approach your business? How do you handle your customers? How do you handle your clients? How do you build these deals together, okay? Your job with your company and with the content that you distribute, especially with your brand, if you're looking for a way to better position yourself in the marketplace, you got to check all those boxes. Are we saying the right things? Is this actually legitimate? Does this make sense? Is this actually going to help people? Is this actually going to make a difference? Or are we just making something up from scratch? That's what we have to look at, and that's what we have to think about. Okay, that power and authority is something that's perplexing to a lot of people, but it's a simple solution that, you know, you can do. I've seen it time and time again. People raise the power, then they lose it. You know, I remember in sales, people would have great months and they have bad months, great months and bad months, because there was this other thing that took place with them that moved them out of that position of power and moved them out of that position of authority. And what I'm talking about here is how do you maintain that and how do you make it integral? That's what we are focused on. That's what we want to play with, right? So that first point is crucial, okay? What are you doing every day? Do you say and do the things that you're going to do, right? Do you say things that make sense? Are they logical? Are they backed up with facts? Can they be proven? Or are you just making things up? Nobody wants to be labeled a fraud. Nobody wants to be labeled a criminal, but it can easily happen if you're not taking that extra time to really develop and communicate in an appropriate fashion. One that comes from a position of an ethical viewpoint. Like, where are you positioned with your brand in the marketplace? Okay. And that's something you got to look at. You have to look at it and say, okay, how long am I actually going to be able to sustain this? Because the second that you branch off into these other areas is the second that you lose that power and authority. Okay. Your brand has to maintain power. Your brand has to maintain authority. And the only way to do that is to come at it from a moral compass, one that is worthy of trust, one that is able to be perceived as trustworthy. Okay. There are some companies out there and people who promote themselves, and I look at them and I say, I would never buy from them. I would never invest with them. I look at all the different angles of everything that they talk about. And I just say to myself, look, this doesn't make any sense at all. This is not coherent. This is not beneficial. Like, what are we actually talking about here? What are we actually looking at? And so when you want to maintain brand authority, brand power, everything that you say and do and put out on social media has to be aligned. It has to make sense. It has to be from that viewpoint. Otherwise, what are you really doing? What are you really breaking down here? Where are you going with this? Like that is the fastest way to lose your authority in the marketplace and to lose your altitude. We don't want that. We want you to maintain your power. Okay. And this is stuff that I've seen over the years. I've seen people lose it. I've seen people hold it. I've seen people increase it. And the way that I'm discussing it with you right now is how they increase it. And I hope that you take it and utilize it to your benefit. All right, let's move on to the next one. What kind of professional attitude do you have when it comes to your brand and when it comes to your content? Okay, you should be coming from an attitude of service and communication. Okay, I remember back, 2015, when I first started to do sales. And I came at it from, okay, I got to get this sale. I have to get this sale. I need people to buy. I need people to buy. And I distinctly remember the day that I woke up, and I said, you know what? I need to be coming from a place of service, and I need to be coming from a place of communication, like willingly wanting to learn, willingly want to communicate, willingly want to provide some sort of service for someone else. And I'll tell you what, I closed the deal that day. After 2 months of nothing and trying and beating my head against the wall, memorizing scripts, trying out new scripts, breaking things down, because I wasn't coming from my brand, which was me, I wasn't coming from my brand point of view of service and communication, that I wasn't able to actually connect with anyone. And I wasn't having any power or authority. I just was a sales guy who was trying to close a deal. When I switched over to being interested in what people had to say and communicate to them in a way that makes absolute sense, my brand began to expand. And people wanted to buy. They wanted to be a part of my group. They wanted to really communicate to me. They wanted to really build up what it was that I was doing and be a part of that ecosystem. Why? Because I came from a place of service. I came from a place of understanding. I came from a place of this makes sense, and I'm here to really help you. I'm here to really expand what it is that you're doing. Because if the brand is all about sell, 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 I mean, there's brands out there about fitness and influencers and energy drinks and all this stuff that really is just convoluted and fake. From a business perspective, when you're branching out onto these social platforms, attitude has to be of service. Attitude has to be of communication. And that communication point of that is probably the most important part. How can I communicate that I am of service? Well, every week I do these trainings. Okay. We missed a few weeks over the holidays. Okay. But we're back in it. We're grinding. We're doing what we need to do so that we actually are helping individuals out there in the marketplace, right? Because why? I want to get back to what is of service. What is my duty? What is my obligation to the audience that follows me? That's what I'm thinking about. What is the obligation that I have to the people that are following me from a marketing perspective, from a production perspective, from the right way to do advertising perspective, from the way to actually create and make more accessible information about advertising and branding? Because out there's so much convoluted information. Everybody's trying to create marketing agencies. This one tries this one tries that. But I don't see a lot of guys out there actually promoting. There's a joke that goes around that marketers are great at promoting everybody else, but they're not good at promoting themselves, which is funny because I feel like they would be the biggest case study for themselves, right? Everything that I say and everything that I do is what I do for my clients. Okay. Everything, all the content that gets placed out in the marketplace, all the content that gets distributed, all of that information, all of that is exactly what I encourage my clients to do. It's exactly what I try to show them how to do. Why? Because I'm interested in making sure that they have the right information all the way across the board. It's not about a sale for me. Yes, I like the sales process. Yes, I like making money. Yes, I like closing deals, but that's 2 to 3% of the entire process of what I'm doing with someone, right? So the entire game is all about the distribution of how we're going to be able to do this, okay? And so from coming from an attitude of service, coming from an attitude of communication, being willing to communicate, wanting to communicate, really makes all the difference for a brand's power and authority in the marketplace. People can pick up on whether or not what it is that you're doing is legitimate. Your ads will be 5 times more effective because you're coming from this viewpoint. And that communication of service will come across in your advertising. You know, you take these pieces of content that are based around this principle that I'm telling you here, people will pick up and say, man, I really like this. I really want to know more about this. I want to be more involved with this person. I want to find out what it is that they're doing because it'll make a difference. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about how can we bring that together so that it makes sense. All right, let's move on to the next one. Position is dictated by presence. What do I mean by this? Position is dictated by presence. So just because somebody has a lot of followers, just because somebody gets a lot of engagement, doesn't mean that they have a powerful position. It just means that they have a presence. That's about it. What you should be striving for is position, okay? Where are you positioned in the marketplace? Are you positioned strategically enough that no matter when you speak, how you break it down, that everybody pays attention to what you have to say, right? Because your power and authority is dictated by the position you have and your presence. Presence is half of it, but maintaining your position comes from the consistency and the communication and the willing to communicate and the service viewpoint. A brand's power and authority is based on their position. And how that is created by what we're talking about here. I've seen it so many times, okay? Some of the most powerful brands, if you look at what accelerated them into the position that's really going to make sense, you'll turn around and ask yourself and say, wow, I see what they did there. They networked, they went to events, they communicated with people, they created with people, they expanded with people, they're moving with individuals. That is what we're looking at here, okay? The breakdown that comes out of that because of why they want to maintain their position. Now, that presence piece is really important. Presence is not so much about having the number of followers as much as it's being there, okay? You have to look at it from the standpoint of a business, okay? The business can only exist as much as people create on it, as much as there's marketing going out, as much as there's advertising going out, as much as there's phone calls going out. That is what creates a presence. It's the same thing on social media. The presence and position only happens by the amount of ads you have going, by the amount of content you have created, by the amount of posts that you do, by the amount of stories that you do, by the amount of reels that you do, by the amount of TikToks that you do. And I'm not talking about silly TikToks here. I'm not talking about crazy breakdown, blah, 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 blah. I'm talking about legitimate things. We're talking about legitimate creations here, okay? Because whatever it is that you create will be representative of your brand, right? So if you're promoting, parties, lifestyles, that kind of thing, that's your brand. If you're promoting business ethics, that's your brand. If you're promoting service-oriented communication, that is your brand. And that is where your power grows from. Okay, you see how all this stuff just builds on top of each other? You have the ethics viewpoint, you have the willingness to communicate viewpoint, you have the communication viewpoint, and now you have the position viewpoint. Position cannot exist without those other things. You cannot control and maintain a position on social media without those other three things that we discussed, right? Presence, ethics, communication, service dictates the amount of power and authority that you have, the amount of presence that you have, the amount of position that you have in the marketplace. That's where this begins. That's where that grows from. And that's what we're focusing on tonight, because if you want to have a brand that maintains power and maintains authority, this is how you do it. I haven't seen any other brand in the marketplace legitimately succeed on this level without doing this. Yes, there's other ways to do it. There's other ways to cheat it. There's other ways to make it happen. There's other ways to build it up. But what we're talking about here, okay, is the fundamentals and the advanced tactics to maintain, grab, and hold power and authority. I'm not going to listen to someone that's always talking about partying and posting about marijuana and posting about all this stuff. I'm just not going to listen to them. The appearance that you give and the presence that you give dictates the assumed perspective that somebody will take on you, right? So if you can think with that, you'll be able to dictate your own position in the marketplace and be able to hold and maintain more power that way. Because without doing that, it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't register on a level that makes sense for me, especially when we're marketing different companies and organizations from that standpoint. It just doesn't make it at all. It becomes a challenge when someone deviates out of those four things that I listed above. That's where the challenge really comes in, and where it just doesn't exist, and where that power and authority basically falls apart and you lose it. All right. So ethic level, being of service, communication, presence, position. Now let's talk about the next part of this. Power and authority comes from nurturing your audience, right? Now, what do I mean by nurturing your audience? Okay. When you hear of nurturing your audience, people think about excessive communication, email campaigns, phone calls, all this stuff. I'm going to tell you what I do. I have a huge database of clients, and we do a few things with them. Okay. I did a video on this earlier today, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But because I'm so focused on that service viewpoint, because I'm so focused on that communication viewpoint, what I'm really doing is just continuously providing that value. And we take every YouTube video that I make and we distribute that out on an email. We make sure it goes out on every social platform. Every single video, every single one that I do gets distributed out. Why? Because I want to nurture the people that follow me. I want them to keep coming back. I want them to continue to come back and see Robert is still here. Syslo Ventures is still here, and we are still promoting. We are still out there communicating, and we're still sharing valuable information. So those email campaigns, very rarely do we ever do an offer email-based campaign where it's like, hey, buy this now, get this special, 50% off. We don't do anything like that. And the reason why I don't do anything like that is because you get bombarded with that enough. I want the experience that you get when you see a piece of content from me, and this is something you can think with. When you receive or send a piece of content, email, post, Facebook post, Twitter post, LinkedIn post, whatever it is, that becomes a moment of either reprieve, solution-oriented, or just make somebody's life a little bit easier. That's the mantra that I take with this. That's really nurturing an audience. There will be a time and a place to actually ask for business. There will be a time and a place to actually ask for the sale. The breakdown of everything from that standpoint is what it is that we're discussing here. We're discussing how exactly can you, as a business owner, nurture an audience more than just blasting them with emails, okay? So if you do an advertising campaign and you've got all these ads going about buy the product, sign up for this, do an awareness campaign also to nurture them. Give them data, give them information. You want that experience to be pleasurable. You want that experience to be something that is enjoyable for people to come back to. You want that experience to happen. Nurturing an audience is not about slamming them with emails, slamming them with offers. We're trying to give them a better experience when they go to their email. I'll tell you right now, there's so many emails that I get every day, they just get deleted. Or I go on LinkedIn and it's like, hey, can I get 5 minutes? Can I get 5 minutes? Can I get 5 minutes? It's like, shut up. It's so overwhelming and it's so overdone. That's what it is that we're talking about right now, is that it's just completely 120% just broken and done. Sorry, I'm just checking to make sure. It looks like the audio is working fine. That's what it is by nurturing. Same thing on Facebook. I very rarely post an ad directly on Facebook asking people to buy something. Why? Because again, I'm thinking about, I would rather give you something you could use now and build that trust with an audience. We're talking about power and authority. You know that when I post, you're getting power. It's coming from a place of power and authority because I'm giving you a way to be nurtured. I'm giving you a pleasurable experience that you'll be like, oh, wow, I could use this right now. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what business you're in. I don't care what kind of real estate you're in. That's the attitude you have to have. How can I truthfully and honestly nurture this in a way that actually makes the experience on the other side of this be like, no, I don't want to delete that. Or no, I want to delete that. I want to get rid of that. I want to stop this communication. You don't want people to stop your communication. You want people to allow it to come through. And the way that we did that, we talked about the ethics point, we talked about the service point, we talked about the attitude point, we talked about the presence point, we talked about the position point. Now we're talking about the nurturing point. And everything stacks on top of everything else to overall equal more power and more authority on social media in the marketplace. You cannot just go out there and start screaming at people, telling people to buy, yada, yada, yada. Like, that's not what we're doing here. What we are doing here is this is true nurturing at its most fundamental and core level. Okay. I'm giving you information that you can use right now. I'm making it easier for you to experience this. I'm not trying to just sell you a product. You will be interested. The audience will be interested in your products and services just by the fact that you do this, just by the fact that you put this into practice with your business and how you nurture your people and how you nurture your database. This is how people become more engaged. We've had people come back after some emails that we sent out about videos, and people would just contact us and just say, hey, I'd like you to help me with this. Tell me more about what you do. I just want to be able to have my brand do one thing really effectively, and that is open up and give way for audiences or somebody in an audience to be able to talk to me. That is really what a brand should be doing. That is power. That is authority. To be able to open up the dialogue from the other side, to be able to make that easy and as seamless as possible. That is what we are discussing right now. You want true power and authority on social media with your marketing, with your branding. Your brand should open up the highway to communication. Don't ignore your people. Don't ignore them. If they're reaching to you, try to communicate to them as often as you can. You want to create and develop that. That's power. That's authority. Oh, Robert responds to everybody's messages. Robert responds to everybody's comment. This company responds to everybody's comment. I feel like I can actually get into communication with you. Every time I post a YouTube video, we get a bunch of comments. And the first thing that I do with that is I go through and I respond to every single comment. On my Instagram, it's the same thing. I go through and I respond to every single comment because I'm nurturing. I'm creating that, hey, yeah, come on back. We'll talk. Yes, I'm acknowledging you. I acknowledge that you're existing. I acknowledge that you are important to me because that's the truth. From a business owner's perspective, everybody's important because everybody's an opportunity. But you also have to look at them just as the individual themselves. They themselves are just as important because they support and give rise to your power and authority in the marketplace. Without that, you don't have anything else. You don't. Coca-Cola, zero. Without that, you don't have any power. True power comes from that creation. We want to nurture that ecosystem, man. I cannot stress this enough. This is what I see, what we do with every client. I tell them, I say, hey, try to make the time, okay? Try to make the time to talk to everybody that you can. You'll be so much happier that you did because then it feels good. You're reciprocating. That nurturing just happens naturally, okay? You're not having to write all these funky email campaigns. You're just simply having a dialogue. Somebody reached to you, you respond. Someone says something to you, you respond. Somebody has a question, you respond. That's what we're talking about here. We are talking about that. We want that growth. We want that nurturing. We want that expansion. We want that communication, all right? So just kind of recapping where we're at so far, okay? This is all about gaining power and authority on social media and in the marketplace, okay? The first thing that we talked about comes from your ethical viewpoint. Like, what are you doing every day? Do you match what you say to what you do? Do you do things in time? Do you keep your word? Do you actually deliver on what you're talking about? Do you follow through on everything? Like, what is your level of ethics? That's the first place of power and authority. The second thing, your attitude must be of service and of communication. The attitude that you have in the marketplace always has to come back to a place of service, and it has to come from a place of communication. That's what we want to know. From an audience perspective, are you trying to help me, and are you actually willing to talk to me? Next, position is dictated by presence. What is your presence? Where is your presence? And what kind of position do you have? Okay, are you taking a more antagonistic, violent position, or are you taking a position that's actually geared towards helping others succeed better? That's what we want to know about. That's what we want to do here. We want to really build that out and create that. Otherwise, you'll lose your power and authority. And that's what we're talking about here, okay? Moving on to the next one. Now, diving deeper into this, everything that you do, okay, should tie into the brand's expansion, okay? Now, you have your external power creation. You also have your own internal power and authority, right? So how you operate during the day, how much content you create, how much you're willing to build on that also dictates your own, like, you need to bolster your own self up. You have to give yourself the momentum, the understanding, the drive, reignite that passion, every single day when it comes to your brand and when it comes to your marketing. Okay. How does your activity level throughout the day actually tie into your brand? Today, I did 201 phone calls. I sent out about 80 pieces of content. I recorded 3 7 to 10 minute new pieces of content. I posted new stories, posted a reel. Right now, I'm sitting here doing this. I'm following up with clients still. We're still communicating. That adds to my power. Like my own activity adds to my power. If I were to turn, like I went to the gym, I did my own personal development, I did my study time, making time with the wife, like all these things add to my power and authority because I don't doubt myself about anything. I'm not doubting myself. I'm not saying, oh, well, I could put that off to tomorrow, or, oh, well, I could have done a better job. No. I know that what I did today was put everything on the playing field. And that gives me more power. And that's an ethical thing. See, so it comes back. Not only is this an external view, but I have my own ethical level within myself. Did I do what I was supposed to do today? Did I accomplish what I was supposed to accomplish today? Was I of service today? Was I actually willing to communicate with people today? Was I present today to hold my position? Did I nurture today? Did I not only nurture myself, but did I not only nurture my clients and my audience, but did I nurture myself? You see, this is not just branding. Building a successful brand is not just about the social media platform growth. It's your growth, because those two things work hand in hand. Your ads, your content, your brand, your website, all of these things are a direct extension of you. They are a direct reflection of you and how you move through the day as a business owner, as a salesperson, as an entrepreneur. You're just as responsible for that brand being created and received as much as you're responsible for being the driving force behind that. You have to maintain that energy. You have to maintain that excitement. You have to maintain that belief that, hey, dude, this is worth it. Every action, every phone call, every email, every activity, every message, every single step you take ties back into the expansion of your brand, both externally and internally, because your brand is going to lose power and authority if you don't believe in it. If you don't believe in what you're promoting, it's not going to work. You're not going to get the responses that you want. You're not going to get the registrations. You're not going to get the sales. You're not going to get the leads. You're not going to get the audience. You're not going to get the very thing that you want so bad is not going to happen because you yourself just do not believe in it. You just don't believe. And because you don't believe is the reason why the brand fails. But power and authority comes from that activity level of what you're doing. For me, everything I'm doing, I'm always like, okay, is this moving forward? Is this progressing in the way that I need to? Is this building out in the direction that I want it to go? Like, how is this actually coming together for me? And that's what I'm thinking about all day. Okay, more branding. Okay, more phone calls. Phone calls are branding. The message that I leave, the text message, the email, it's a service-based communication. And I'm having the willingness to communicate. I'm providing the ethical duty to actually want to solve problems for people. And I'm doing my own responsibility, which is actually focusing on the development and building of my brand, which in turn does what? Builds more of my power. It builds more of my authority than what anybody else is going to do. What I'm telling you right now is what I've been doing since 2015. Every single day is how I approach this. This is how people are like, well, how was that transition when you left, when you left your other job? It wasn't that bad because I did exactly what I'm telling you right now, to be able to just go to my database of people and say, I've got a product and service. Let's do business. I'm ready for you. It made it that much easier. And then all I had to do was sustain it. All I had to do was keep it going. All I had to do was just do what I'm doing. Like, it doesn't take a lot of over exaggerated amounts of effort. It just takes what I said. I've created my own positions because I was present. I was always willing to have an attitude of service, and I was always willing to want to communicate to people. And I held it as an ethical responsibility to continue to build my brand, which increased my power and authority in the marketplace. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So tying into all of that, this is where the notion of becoming a powerful and respected expert comes into play. Now expert used to be the thing, you know, in 2014 to 2018, still kind of is, right? But expert's not really sought after. But what ends up happening is that progressing through this and moving through what I'm discussing here automatically by assimilation will make you an expert. Give it 60 to 90 days, you automatically will just be an expert. If you could produce and do exactly what I'm talking about and really distribute out at the levels and activity required to expand, you will achieve that expert status. You will achieve that status that we're looking for. Your ads will convert more simply because you've backed it up by all the things that we're discussing right now. So I'm going to take a sip of this. You've backed it up. You've made it real. You put in the energy. You put in the effort. I can't tell you. I love the guys that turn around and they say, I don't have time to brand. It doesn't work. Ads are shit. Excuse my French. Ads are terrible. It's not converting. It's not working. I want to be like this guy. Those guys that are already accelerating at that level have put so much effort and have put so much energy into the development and creation of that message. It's unreal. Even the guys that are probably criminal, even the guys that you think are criminal, hey, they're still out promoting you. They still show up. They may have an inferior product, but they're showing up. See, this is that ethical thing, right? You can't let that happen. Attitude of service, attitude of communication. Are you not willing to want to help more people? And the only way that you're going to help more people is to be able to communicate to those people. I mean, when I was doing sales, I wasn't really big on promotion yet. I was a little nervous about doing it, but I was making the calls. I was making all the, follow-ups that I could, sending out all the selfie videos that I could to get responses from people. But I'll tell you where it really pivoted. I came home one day and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit here and I'm going to create 3 to 5 pieces of content every single day. And that's what I did. I came home every day, Monday through Friday, and I made it a mission of mine to be like, I will do 3 pieces of content and 3 articles every single day. And I will post every single day. I will distribute every single day. I didn't have enough money to spend money on ads. So because I couldn't afford the cost of ad campaigns, I reverted to sheer activity, right? I reverted to sheer activity because I wanted to be that expert. And in my mind, I just felt if I had way more content than anybody else on the subject, that would make me an expert. Because I had spent all these years prior not willing to communicate. I had spent all this time not willing to talk because I was helping other people expand their mission. But I didn't want to say anything because I didn't think I was valuable enough to do so. That's what happens when you're behind the camera most of the time. You like doing it, but you kind of forget. You start going, how come I'm not doing this for me? How come I'm not communicating for me? I know my craft. I've done so many ads. I've taken so many photos. I've ran so many ad campaigns. I've made so many websites. Why am I not communicating that about me? And then I had to get really honest and I had to say, well, I guess I'm not being as ethical as I'm supposed to be because I'm not communicating about it. See, I was cutting my own reach. Why? Because I didn't have an attitude of service and communication. I was unwilling to do both of those things. I wanted to be paid and I would do my job, right? But the expert is the one that encompasses what we're talking about here. The expert is the one who breaks down build everything out. And that expert is automatically associated with power and authority. And that's what we're saying here. Power and authority, expert. Power and authority automatically equals expert. And if people aren't saying that about you, you're not advertising and you're not creating at a high enough level. Like, people need to comment to you and say, Rob, I see your stuff everywhere. Rob, I see your stuff all over the place. And honestly, they do. And they do because I do it so much. And I know that I'm doing it so much. So back in 2015, when I was really hitting it hard, that's when it changed for me, because I understood the power of creating my own power and authority. I didn't rely on anybody else to do it. I didn't seek validation from anybody with the brand. What I did is just say, I'm going to take full responsibility for this and I'm going to make it happen. I will create my own power and authority. I am the generator and the source of that. And that's how I broke it down. Okay. So that 3 to 5 pieces of, I remember we were at an event one time, the guy I used to work for, we were friends on LinkedIn, and he was at a conference and he was talking about advertising. And he went up on LinkedIn and he was showing the LinkedIn feed, and he's scrolling down the LinkedIn feed, and you saw my face, then you saw my face again, then you saw my face again. And I was like, I was actually when it happened, I was a little bit embarrassed. I'm not going to lie. I was like, well, I'm showing up a lot because I'm really doing something right here. Like, it was pretty obnoxious. Like, it was a lot of content, but I was like, oh my God, it worked. I was like, oh my God, it worked. I made myself into power and authority, and I made it an expert. And that's all I had to do. Like LinkedIn is the most mysterious platform. That's the platform that it happened on. And so today I do the same thing. I just post again, post again, post again. I don't even care if I'm getting likes and comments on it, because I know it's showing up, because it does show up. And that automatically created that viewpoint. That automatically created that prowess of an expert. But I wasn't calling myself an expert. It just happened. I don't call myself an expert. I don't like the word. But it just happens because of the amount of power and authority that I have. That visceral drive based around my ethical viewpoints that I have, and around the attitude that I have for servicing and helping and communicating. Like, I told Damon the other day, like, I did all these calls and I made all this content and I distributed all that content. And I just said, man, I feel so much better when I communicate. I feel so much better when I promote. You know why? I'm going to tell you why. Because I know about power and authority. And I know that as I'm promoting, I'm reaching more and more and more and more and more out into the marketplace. And that's exciting for me. I'm like, wow, I'm actually making an impact here. I'm actually getting it into the space of others without having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sheer volume, sheer content, sheer commitment, providing that energy to really build that up creates that power, and it reciprocates. It just becomes like this engine. It just becomes like this fuel. It just becomes like this energy that just is basically unstoppable, right? Because I'm focused on building the power and authority in the marketplace. That's what I want to do. I'm like, oh my God, how could I do this better? How could I feed this more? How could I create this more? But it wasn't about being an expert. It just kind of happened. So when you do all these things that I'm talking about, and the nurturing and all that, the nurturing, that's how you just keep feeding. Here's some more data. Here's some more information. Here's some more information. Here's some more. Here's some more. Expert just happens without even trying. The expert is born. Your power and authority is created by your own doing, not by anybody else's validation, but by your own. Because every time that you create your content, and every time that you distribute that content, and every time that you advertise, and every email that you send out, and every phone call that you make, and every text message that you send, and every video that goes up on YouTube. All that's doing is just reinforcing your position, which in turn does what? It reinforces your power and reinforces the authority of your brand. So if you've ever had the moment of like, why am I doing this? You know, I was talking to somebody like, oh, I don't have time. I don't want to do this. And I just thought to myself, I was like, okay, they don't understand that reciprocal process of you, the primary generator for your own power and authority. That's the secret, folks. You're your own primary generator for power and authority. That's it. You claim it, you grab it, you create it. And the more power and authority that you want is directly proportional to the amount of energy, effort, and creation that you put on the line for your brand. Because everything that you're doing feeds back into the monster. Feed the beast. The beast is your brand. The beast is that ecosystem. The beast is that world that people want to keep coming back into. You know, the guys that go out and they show properties and they do real estate, fix and flip, you know, keep feeding the animal. Keep feeding that animal. Keep feeding that beast, because that's where this comes from. Right? Power and authority is of your own creation, to the steps of which that we were talking about here. That's the growth. That's where it gets, this is where it gets interesting now, because now you have to ask yourself, all right, well, how much am I actually willing to create on that level to get the responses that I'm looking for? Like, what do I have to do to achieve that? Right? Where does that actually come from? And where's my involvement in that? You know, is it at the highest level that it could be? Could I do more? Could I promote more? Could I build more? I ask myself that all the time. You know, I'm always like, man, did I do enough? It'd be an incredible month last month. I was like, wow, did I actually do enough? You know, we write down numbers. I write down my goals every day. You know, did I do enough? Did I create more? Did I build more? Like, what happened? That's the game that we're talking about here. Okay. Did I do enough? Did I bring enough out into the marketplace at that point? Why? Because I want to do the next one, which is influence for the good and benefit of other people. All I'm trying to do is influence you to be a little bit better. That's it, right? You want power and authority, influence people for the better. Your brand has to influence people. Investors. Why would investors invest with you? What could they learn from you? And by the way, you real estate people, you NFT people, you crypto people, stop using the language of the space. You're like, oh, this is great. Cool. Tell me more. Then you all start going off into this crazy communication. Like, I need a damn dictionary to listen to you. Go watch my video about alienating people, man. Oh, why isn't anybody a part of NFTs? Because nobody even knows what NFT stands for. Non-fungible token. What does that mean? Yeah. If you're marketing NFTs, watch this video and really do a good job of explaining everything in as simple terms as possible. Influencing for the good and benefit. Like, show how it's a good benefit to me. I had a guy call me today. He's like, yeah, Rob, dude, NFTs are the shit, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, everybody that I talk to, that I speak to, they're a little bit odd. They don't seem very trustworthy. Like, why would I get involved in this? And what happens is, you know, he told me why. And I just said, good. Why are there not more people doing that? Why is it so secretive? See, if something's secretive, there's a lie. If something has to be secret, there's a lie, or there's just something about it that's not true, right? So that's not an influence for the good or the benefit of other people. Something that's built on secrecies and lies has no chance of thriving, has no chance of substantiating growth. Unless, you know, other people participate in the secrecy, other people participate in the lie, but that's not power and authority. That's degradation. Right? You don't want your brand, you don't want your message to be centered around degradation. I can think of a lot of other industries that do this, but you want your brand to be centered around, you know, power. Power comes from what we talked about. It comes from your ethics, your service attitude, your attitude on communication, your presence, your position, your nurturing, how you nurture, what you say when you nurture. Are you a salesy nurturer? Or are you more of an educational nurturer? Or are you more of a conversational nurturer? Right? These are all great questions. These are all great things that you got to think about, right? We've been talking for the last 51 minutes. These are all the things that you got to look at and say to yourself, okay, how am I actually influencing for the benefit with my own brand? Am I doing things to actually attract business in a negative way? Am I doing things to attract, something else in a negative way? Like, what am I actually doing here? I don't know. Something you got to take a look at, right? We're influencing for the good and the beneficial. Okay, power and authority, strong long-term power, strong long-term authority is centered around that principle of good and benefits. Okay, attacks, violence, criticism, antagonism, unfortunately, gets a lot of attention, but is also just as quickly dismissed. I mean, think about the moment when you hit your hardest point and you wish that somebody had some valuable information relating to business in any circumstance that you could have used right there in that moment. Or how many people out there right now have that? That's how I think about marketing. That's how I think about advertising. There's so much information out there about it, right? And that's why we produce so much content, because it's just like, oh man, I'm just trying to solve so much misinformation. But that's also a responsibility that I feel like I have. I mean, I don't think a lot of guys do that. I don't think a lot of people actually do that. But the ones that do are the ones that I respect. And, as a consequence, not a consequence, but as like a result, you're getting a greater caliber of a client. You're getting a greater caliber of a business to listen. I want to do business with those high caliber people. I want to help high caliber, high functioning, high performing companies do better, because that's what I am. I'm a high performer, right? That's how I view things. And so my brand attracts what I do. Does that make sense? My brand attracts what I communicate. My brand attracts my attitude, my thoughts, my feelings, what I do throughout the day. All that equates to what I get back. All of it, right on down to making my bed in the morning. It all attracts, okay? You are responsible for the creation of your own power and authority, which we have established tonight, which we have established in this communique. But the other thing that you need to look at is that every little activity level that you have influences the reception of your brand, influences the reception of your message, influences the reception of your advertising, of your product, of your service. Like the guys that are like, I want haters. Well, why? Like what is that? Like really analyze that statement. I used to think that was true. I used to think that had to happen. And I have to tell you that I don't have haters, really. Why? Because I created an environment where it's like almost impossible for that to happen. You're free to go, you're free to arrive, you're free to communicate however you want, right? But the thing about it, though, is that it all is a direct correlation to what I do throughout the day. It is an all-encompassing thing that I know feeds my brand, feeds my power, okay? I want my power to be as far-reaching all the way around the world as it can be. And if I'm responsible for creating that power, then everything that I do across the board has to equal that. Absolutely everything has to equal that. because I have a belief in myself to market. I have a belief in my company, my team, and myself to advertise that. Without that belief, I have no power. Without that activity level and that communication and the ad spend to back up that belief, what am I doing? I will never achieve the power and the authority that I actually want because I don't have that activity to distribute the belief that I've cultivated for the last 14 or 15 years. Like I remember sitting there being like, I've got so much potential. I've got so much that I can offer. I've got so much that I could talk about. I've got so much that I could say, but I didn't have the belief to actually do it. Boy, was that demoralizing. That was tough. I spent a majority of my time promoting other people, listening to other people, helping other people grow, helping other people communicate. And I kept getting angrier and angrier and angrier and angrier and frustrated. And I was like, what is this? Like, why am I feeling so frustrated about this? And the reason that I was feeling so frustrated was because I wasn't communicating. I didn't have the attitude of service. I didn't understand power. I didn't understand authority. I didn't understand that I was the one creating that. I didn't understand that I was the one who was building that brand to that level, that I was responsible for my outcome, that I was responsible for the effectiveness of my brand, that I was responsible for the effectiveness of what dictates power and authority in my universe. I would watch people say the darndest things. I would watch people say things that I was like, how could you even get away with that? And people would listen to it. These guys were saying things that I thought were absolutely ludicrous. And I was just like, how are they getting away with this? You know why? They just had belief, and then they built their own power and authority, and that was it. And then they spent some money to back that up, and then they become an expert, unquestionably. Right or wrong, that's what happened. And that's what I'm talking about here. Right or wrong, you can create your power and you can create your authority in the marketplace by doing what we're talking about here tonight. This is so important to really think about because nothing works without this, right? This is how you create and control that space. This is how you become that formidable influence in the marketplace that you want to have. I know you want to have it. I know you want people to listen to you. I know you want to have engagement. I know that you want people to, put in their information on that form and become a lead. I know you want all those things, and I want all those things too. And what we're talking about here tonight is exactly how you do it. Sorry, my throat's getting a little dry. 1 second. Right? Belief in yourself to market. Belief in yourself to advertise. Influence for good and benefits. Your activity level ties into the brand, reinforces the power of the brand. Your ethics level, what you do throughout the day, how you do things throughout the day. Your attitude of service. Your willingness to communicate, your attitude towards communication and help. Your presence, your repeated presence, your repeated cultivated growth and presence for your position in the marketplace. The nurturing, probably out of everything that we've talked about tonight, probably nurturing is the most important one of them all. I would say the ethics one is the most important one, but like the activity level of the nurturing viewpoint, that educational soft sell, I'm here. Here's some information that you could use right now. Here's something that you could use. Here's something you might not have thought about. I was thinking about you. Let's use this. Here's something you can implement right away. Your awareness campaigns that should exceed beyond your ads. Your awareness campaigns and your ad campaigns, all the way across the board, they should be bigger in number than your hard sell ads. Truthfully, that's what I believe. And that's what we're talking about. So gaining power, Gaining authority in the marketplace, the creation of that, your brand authority, as people like to call it, everything that we've discussed tonight is probably one of the most key and important things you need to think about if you want your brand to be successful, if you want this thing to really produce the results, produce that engagement, get those leads, get those conversions to happen. That's really what you need to be thinking about. Everything that we talked about tonight, this is a pretty good one. I really like this. This was a good viewpoint on things that, I haven't really shared before, but it's something where I don't see anybody in the marketplace talking about. And they should talk about it, because when I sit here and I look at this and I think to myself, okay, I want to hold more power. I want to hold more authority. Okay, good. Well, right off the bat, I got to be more ethical. Right off the bat, I got to want to help more people more often. Right off the bat, I got to talk more. I got to communicate more. I got to promote more. I got to have more presence. I got to have more presence. I got to have more volume. I got to have more distribution. I got to have more position. We have to retarget and nurture and communicate harder than I ever have before. I got to look at all my activity that I do in a given day and ask myself, is this actually moving this forward? Am I supporting myself to achieve more power and authority? That's a good thing. Think about that. I mean, how many people do you know actually think that way? Oh, I'm the creator of my power and authority. People say that, but I don't think they know what that really means. I don't think they've dissected it as much as I've dissected it here tonight, and how that kind of emotional, mental, spiritual thing plays into the power and authority of your brand. And with that, I'm going to leave you with that final thought. I'll see you all next week on our next episode of SysloSpice. Thank you so much.